like to introduce Mr. Jim Decker, who, if you haven't been down by the batting cages, his name and number is retired. One of the most successful coaches here, been a great friend and a mentor to me. He is definitely a pillar of strength for me, and been a great friend now in the future, and I expect in the future. And he is going to help present the Jim Keating Award. Jim Decker.
Thanks, Ted. I'd like to begin by thanking and recognizing the fact that I think this is a real watershed year for the baseball program. I've seen all three teams play, and particularly in the second half of the season, boy, I saw the freshmen play, and I would say, a lot. And the improvement that they showed in the last month and a half. The JVs played consistently good baseball, despite what I thought was, they had just a couple of pitchers, but they sure stayed in every game. And the varsity, when they came back from San Luis Obispo, just played everybody tough, obviously, including St. Francis. And I'd like to point out the success of Ted's staff, and I think he's assembled a great group of coaches. And I'd also like to single out Ted, obviously, because he's the right man for the job. And when I addressed the varsity team early in the season, I said that we're fortunate to have Ted Turkington as our coach, and I sure see good things in the future. So thank you, coaches. My job tonight is to introduce and tell you a little bit about the Jim Keating Award. And Jim Keating was the coach prior to me. He began in 1955. And he coached until I took over the program in 1974, so 19 seasons. And I had the good fortune to play for him along with my two older brothers. And he was a great athlete himself and a wonderful, wonderful coach. He's in the San Francisco Prep Hall of Fame. He's in the San Francisco State's Hall of Fame. He's in St. Mary's Hall of Fame. Just a gifted man in many ways. And when I took over the program in 1974, I made it one of my first duties to establish the Jim Keating Award, because I did not want this man's name to ever be forgotten. And when Ted came in to see me at the end of the year, he asked me, what does the Jim Keating Award represent? And he goes, I just kind of want to hear from you because you established it. And I said, it's a love for the game, of course. It may or may not be necessarily the greatest player on the team, but in my mind, it is the player who best epitomizes the things that Coach Keating tried to instill, the values that he tried to instill in his players, and then I hopefully tried to instill in my players, and I know that Ted. And when I listen to these things, and he's talking about tradition, and he's talking about program, but I know that he's doing the very same thing. And so I basically told him in a word, it's the kid who I felt that always was the one that I held up as an example of the SI baseball player. Successful on the field, in the classroom, and in the community at large. And I hope that kind of summarizes it for you. We've given the award out for a number of years now, since 1974, and I'd like to point out two prior recipients, Mr. John Grealish, class of 79. And I'd like to recognize Joe Gothel's class of 95. Joe, where are you? There he is back there. Two former winners. We are very fortunate tonight to have with us Jim and Betty Keatings. Betty Keating was a special lady, Jim's wife. Very fortunate to have Shannon Keating here, Shannon Beal, who is going to come up in a second and say a few words and give out the award just like her mom used to do. And she's joined by her husband, Steve, and very proud to have her, very glad to have here daughter Megan, who will be coming in as an incoming freshman from St. Thomas More. So let's have all three come in.
go up yet. Oh, okay.
Shannon, Megan, why don't you come on up? A little side story here that I always kind of like to tell the story. It's kind of entertaining. Shannon's my goddaughter. The Keatings have 11 children, and Shannon being the end. And I remember I was 17 or 18, and Coach Keating said, I'd really like you to be the godfather of my daughter. You know, and I'm 17. And I'm going, oh, geez, what do I do? You know, does this mean I have to take her to church? Anyway, so I remember going to the baptismal ceremony, and it was over in Marin County. You know, as soon as that ceremony was over, we went out to the baseball field at Marin Catholic. Jim Keating threw batting practice. I hit for about 2 hours, and all the Keating shag baseballs out there while I hit. And then we went back, of course, for the famous, they were called Betty Burgers back in the house. And that was Jim Keating. Baseball was never very far from his mind. No offense, Shannon, even on the day of her baptism. That's okay. I'd like to introduce the Keating Award winner for the 2004, Steve Hardy. I think that Jim would be pleased with this selection. I've seen Steve play his entire career here, and I was particularly impressed this year with a move from third base to shortstop. And watching Steve play a lot, I couldn't help but notice he played with this kind of quiet determination and a real level-headed demeanor that he had. And that's what Jim Keating had. He was not very excitable, and that's why I enjoyed playing for him, because we knew he was always he always kept us cool. And this guy, when he moved from third and went to short and had the year that he had, that's leading by example. He's a good student. He's a great kid, and I think that it's a great selection on Coach Turkington's part. And I'd like to turn it over now to Shannon, who would like to say a few words. Shannon.
Ignatious has a long tradition of providing superior scholar athletes, and this award was established to honor that movement. And tonight's recipient of this award personifies the excellence of academia, as well as being an exceptional athlete and attitude and ability. This person is the very essence and spirit of what the Jim Keating Award is all about. And I'm proud that my father was able to contribute to St. Ignatius, and that his legacy still lives on. Thank you.
At this time, I'd like to give our graduating seniors this year an opportunity to say a few words.